really appreciate it.
He's the real MVP.
We really appreciate our timekeeper and our panelists for being high discipline and high morale about what I'm doing. Bebhinn, I'm coming to you next. Oh, yeah. And the questions we asked Bebhinn, who is the co-coordinator of the Homeless Union chapter in Albany, is to tell us a little bit about the Homeless Union chapter there. What does a typical week or month in the union look like? What kinds of issues are y'all organizing around in Albany? And then to think about how being part, as a Homeless Union chapter, how does being part of the National Nonviolent Medicaid Army Network help you strengthen your Homeless Union organizing? What NVMA activities are you taking advantage of? What have y'all learned from the NVMA?
So I'm going to reflect past spring and summer because we're moving into winter offensive and we're still planning on what that's going to look like. So between April and last month, Joe, my co-coordinator, and I, and Nicholson, who was in another workshop, we go to the Focus Breakfast, which is a free breakfast program provided in our community. And during the summer months, it's like 100, 150 unhoused or deeply impoverished people come through, over 200 during the winter months. And we go in there and we have breakfast and we sit down and we talk to people. And we get to know them on a personal level. We share our experiences and we hear their experiences. And we consistently show up every week, week after week, building trust and building relationship. And then immediately after breakfast, we have our meeting in the chapel area. The folks rotate out. Organizing unhoused folks is hard work because of the situations that they're in. We lose people who become incarcerated for a few months or into a substance treatment program for a few months. Or they get housed and then they're like grappling their new reality and all of the unpacked trauma that they have to now unpack. But consistently we see about 12 to 15 people per meeting. And between April and September, we really focused on our Project of Survival, which we did once a month, every month. So we would start every meeting with some political education, usually videos of folks like Nijmie or Willie or other people that you've heard speak in this room to ground us in our political education. We always discuss our community agreements and the mission statement every single meeting. We discuss the 4 C's and what they mean, what mental fortresses are our leaders facing to sharpen their C's. And then, so each month we executed a Project of Survival on the riverfront, which is where a lot of the unhoused folks encamp in Albany. And we would organize to get together food and people to serve. A mixture of our leaders and our community members would participate in that. And we would feed around 60 to 100 folks through every one of those. And we would just talk to folks about the union and invite them to start joining us at the Focus Church. And then it's a new union. It's just about 15, 16 months old. But our union kicked ass this year.
Yeah.
They did. They really did. And they're proud. So for, achievements and wins, obviously leadership development and base building is always number one. But beyond that, we were able, through literally the pressure of the Albany chapter, even though it was a statewide bill that people all over New York State were fighting for, the Albany National Union of the Homeless chapter really pulled it off this year. It was 6 years in the making for a housing access voucher program. The governor was a hard no, and we just kept hitting her with hard press, directly impacted people, sharing their experience and saying, we need these vouchers. And after 6 years of no, she gave us a pilot program of $50 million a year for 4 years. And those vouchers are going to start going out in 2026. And our homeless union is so proud of that. We also beat back an anti-panhandling ordinance in the city of Albany where they were trying to criminalize folks, and we just kept showing up to city council and directly impacted people. They call it flagging. That's what panhandling, that's what folks who are impacted call it. And they talk about why they're flagging and what brought them there, and they're just trying to survive. So we beat back that ordinance. We also went to, there was a mayoral forum, and there was a bunch of service providers invited to that forum, and homeless union crashed. And they were going around the room, and they're like, we're this provider, we're this provider, we're this provider. And then like 8 people stood up and we're like, we're with the National Union of the Homeless. And, we're the people who are actually living out here. And 2 of those mayoral candidates came to the National Union of the Homeless meeting following that. And the one that won the race is very tied in to the homeless union chapter, and we have high hopes that things like anti-paneling ordinances and things like that she's going to help us fight those things back. And then the key insight to this is that directly impacted people show up, they make a difference, they can't be ignored, and our organization projects power. When we show up in a room, we're all wearing our swag, and we're all saying, we're one band, one sound. They see that we're organized. It moves people, and it moves people to understand that we are stakeholders. And then to talk about how we tie in NVMA, being part of the Nonviolent Medicaid Army helps strengthens our homeless youth organizing, because majority of the folks, I'd say 99% of them, are either disabled, ill, mental health crisis, can't afford their medicine, they lost their housing because of a health crisis, or they're picking between, paying for food and their prescriptions. And so we tie the fight for our healthcare and our housing together, and everybody in our chapter, nearly everybody in our chapter is directly impacted by the healthcare system. So it's a unifying force for us, because not everybody in our union sees eye to eye or has the same politics or the same worldviews, but they do agree that the healthcare system is kicking their ass and that housing is tied to it, and we need to work together and fight together. And so it's just super important, the leadership development, especially around the base building, making sure that our leaders are clear and confident and connected and committed. And just because I have 3 minutes left, and I went through this a little quicker than I thought I would, one of our emerging leaders who was really we're seeing strong development, and we're excited, and I wish I could have got him here this weekend. But he was living in a single occupancy room, and he was out walking and got hit by a car, and he was dragged 2 blocks. And his name is Richard Johnson, and he always says, I'm Richard Johnson, proud leader of the National Union of the Homeless.
Richard Johnson.
Richard Johnson. Getting teary-eyed. So he was in the hospital. He had 14 hours of surgery to save his leg. And then he was supposed to be put into, we have a shelter in Albany that's a respite shelter specifically for folks who need medical attention. But that shelter was full. And so they sent him over to the city mission, and the city mission told him that he was an insurance liability, that he couldn't come in. Right? So Richard slept outside of the legislative office building, which is a symbol of power in our city, for over a year. And got multiple infections in that leg that he just had surgery on, that he was supposed to be in a bed, but he was outside. And so that's the story that he tells when we go and we talk to politicians and political leaders and service providers and decision makers. That's the story that Richard shares, and that he almost lost his life. And then he says, when I haven't found the National Union of the Homeless, I don't know where I would be. And now Richard is through a program through the Homeless Homeless and Travelers Aid Services, is sheltered for 1 year, but that's only 1 year. We have to figure out what's next for Richard and for the rest of our leaders, because we need secured housing that everybody has all the time. They don't have a ticking time clock counting down when that housing is going to end for them. And I'll end there.
Thank you.